Welcome classic rock fans to a video that is much requested, and that is a rundown of the 10 best cover versions. If you're new to this channel, please do click like, subscribe, and do check that notification bell. Share this video on social media and check some of the links below where you can support the sterling work done at Classic Album Review. A great man once said that art begins in imitation and ends in innovation. And in many ways the cover versions that I really love are those where artists have moulded something truly beautiful from the clay put down by the original artist. So without further ado, here are my 10 favourite cover versions that have improved on the original in my opinion, and do stick around to the end for a few honourable mentions. Number 10 is Harry Nielsen's Without You. This song was originally written by Peter Ham and Tom Evans of the British group Badfinger, and featured on their album, the 1970s album No Dice. The working title for this song was If It's Love. Nielsen originally thought this was a Beatles song and decided to steer well clear of it. When he discovered that it wasn't a Beatles song, he thought he'd have a crack at it. I use the term crack advisedly here. But he wanted a starker version of this song that was just him and the piano. It was actually producer Richie Perry that suggested he should turn this into something much bigger, a grand, crashing, theatrical monster ballad, complete with orchestra. Of course, this song featured on Nielsen's Nielsen Schmielsen album, which came out in 1971. Number 9 is Jeff Buckley's Hallelujah. This was originally written and recorded by Leonard Cohen in 1984, and while you can't discount Cohen's original version, I think it lacks the beauty of Jeff Buckley's version. Leonard Cohen spoke often about the lyrical beauty of this number and said many hallelujahs exist, and this is reflected in a wide range of covers of this song, all with very different intents and tones and purposes. Some joyous, depending on the performer of course, some uplifting, and some have an almost yearning, melancholic quality to it. This song was recorded by Leonard Cohen in 1984 on his album Various Positions, but it found more fame, I think, when John Cale covered it. And that was the version, I think, that inspired Jeff Buckley. Time magazine described Jeff Buckley's version as exquisitely sung, observing that Cohen murmured the original like a dirge, but Buckley treated the song like a tiny capsule of humanity, using his voice to careen between glory and sadness, beauty and pain. I could be mistaken, but I'm pretty sure Leonard Cohen has said that kind of Jeff Buckley has made this song his now. Number 8 is Sinead O'Connor and Nothing Compares to You. Now this was a monster hit back in the day, I'm sure you all remember it. Tom Moon said of Sinead's version that she adapts the breathy approach of a torch singer, and the LA Times spoke of a raw emotion with spare sounds, quiet, desperate, lovelorn beauty. I have to fully concur with all those assessments of this number. Of course, Prince wrote the song for his group The Family in 1985, but I don't believe his version was released until after his death, or not released fully anyway. Do correct me if I'm wrong there in the comments below. But Sinead O'Connor recorded this for her album I Do Not Want What I Haven't Got, an album that I played to death when it came out. I don't actually own a copy now, I'll have to add it to my Amazon wish list. It was actually the second single off this album. It was a song that was co-produced with Sinead O'Connor and Nellie Hooper. But it's the music video that was incredibly affecting, I think, which I think drove it to number 1. No doubt it was probably on quite heavy rotation by MTV at the time. In fact, Billboard named Nothing Compares to You as the number 1 world single of 1990. Number 7 is Marvin Gaye's I Heard It Through the Grapevine, a song written by Norman Whitfield and Barrett Strong for Motown Records in 1966. Now, this song has a rather troubled history in some respects. It was first recorded by Smokey Robinson and the Miracles, but they didn't release it until 1968 on their Special Occasion album. The Isley Brothers recorded it, but I don't think their version was released at the time. And Whitfield and Strong insisted that Marvin Gaye record this song. However, the head of Motown, Berry Gordy, chose Holland Dozier Holland's Your Unchanging Love over Grapevine as his next single. But it wasn't until Gladys Knight and the Pips had a huge hit with this song that they changed their mind. Now, Marvin Gaye's version was released on his 1968 album In the Groove, an album that was retitled Heard It Through the Grapevine after the success of the song. Bit of opportunism there for you. Marvin Gaye's version was actually released after the song gained in popularity after it was played to death by a Chicago DJ named E. Rodney Jones. Of course, Berry Gordy reconsidered and decided to put the song out. I think his version is not only the most popular, but I think it's the definitive version of this song. Number 6 is Tainted Love by Soft Cell. This song was actually composed by Ed Cobb, formerly of American group The Four Preps, but of course in the UK we know it much better from Gloria Jones's version in 1964, which of course became a Northern Soul anthem. Soft Cell turned this into a 1981 synth pop classic. They slowed down the tempo, giving it a more sultry, almost European cabaret feel to it. I remember seeing them do this on the Top of the Pops. My father not being that enamoured with the very effete looking Mark Almond, but I thought it was fabulous. Interestingly, in 2010, DJ Frank Dewhurst claimed he was the first person to play this song to Mark Almond. Then Soft Cell eventually incorporated it in their set, replacing their version of Frankie Valli and the Four Seasons, The Night. No doubt when they did record it and release it, it was a wonderful, wonderful song, big hit for them, but their version had a kind of a pulsating menace to it, which is definitely part of the appeal of the number. Number 5 is Johnny Cash and Hurt, and this song of course was originally recorded in 1995 by Nine Inch Nails, covered by Cash in 2002 as part of his wonderful American series where he collaborated with Rick Rubin's. This song was released a year before Cash died, if I'm not mistaken, and it's featured from American for The Man Comes Around. But it's the accompanying video featuring a kind of a collage of images from Johnny Cash's life. It's incredibly profound, incredibly powerful. In fact, Trent Reznor, after seeing the video, said that he found it beautiful, meaningful, going as far to say as this song isn't mine anymore. So definitely one that has to feature on my list. Number 4 is Aretha Franklin and Respect. This wonderful song was originally written by Otis Redding and features on his finest album, Blue Otis, I call it. It was released in 1965, in fact, but Redding's version seems to be very much a call, a demand for respect, I think, from his partner, his woman, especially when he was, as he sort of provides for her, I think. 1967, Aretha Franklin records this and changes it, and does something quite remarkable with it, really. She turns it from being a very insular, narrow kind of sounding plea. She very much sees the zeitgeist of the moment. It becomes a narrative built around the theme of human dignity, as well as a call for change. The civil rights movement would have been in full vigour at this time, I suspect. But she also added the iconic RSEPECT bit as well. Number 3 is Tori Amos and Thank You by Led Zeppelin. Now, a lot of you are going to be frothing at the gills that I should dare suggest that anyone could do Led Zeppelin better. But I adore Tori Amos and I adore her ability to interpret songs and fully appreciate the value of silence and note placement. This, accompanied by her breathy vocals, adds something to this song, I think. Don't get me wrong, the Led Zeppelin version is absolutely sublime, but her gorgeous soaring voice and that reverb she uses perfectly on this number, those discordant piano notes, which is very much a part of her style, I think. It makes this song a little bit more powerful, in my opinion. And also the way she uses the piano makes her music more akin to a kind of soundscaping rather than just a musical accompaniment. This was featured on her Crucify EP. And number 2 is the Four Tops, If I Were a Carpenter. Beautiful song written by Tim Harding, of course, in the 1960s, inspired by his love for actress Suzanne Morse. This piece actually appeared on his 1967 album, Tim Harding 2, and it was one of the 2 songs released, I believe, as singles from this record, the other one being Misty Roses. But we all know this song from its performance at Woodstock. But the Four Tops, their harmonies, the musical accompaniment, the grandeur of this piece is just absolutely sublime, and it doesn't in any way inhibit the vulnerability inherent in the lyrics. I mean, yes, of course, Tim Harding's has an intimacy to it. But the Four Tops rendering of this number, not only beautifully and sensitively sung, but the accompanying orchestrations as well, just take this up a notch. And number 1 is the Jimi Hendrix Experience and All Along the Watchtower. So many people argue that they prefer Dylan covers than Dylan originals, many citing the delightful jangle of the Byrds' Mr. Tambourine Man, a song that no doubt should have perhaps featured on this list. Sometimes a little bit of his bopness can go a long way. There are times I can listen to him for hours, and there are times when he stops resembling a kind of a troubadour poet from Minnesota and begins to resemble somebody hoovering in an adjacent room. But I love Dylan's interpretation here of chapter 21 verses 5 to 9 of the book of Isaiah. But I think the Fall of Babylon is given a more appropriate apocalyptic feel by Hendrix's version, with that squall of guitars and thunderous musical accompaniment by the Experience. With its musical passages and solos, it has a much more cinematic feel. Certainly much grander than the version that featured on Bob Dylan's sepia-toned John Wesley Harding from 1967. This is, without doubt, one of the finest interpretations of another artist's work that I've ever heard. And now, as promised, a few honourable mentions. I have to mention Whitney Houston's I Will Always Love You. Of course, it was originally a song written by Dolly Parton, but Whitney Houston, the power of that voice and her performance is just absolutely seismic. It was actually written by Dolly Parton as a farewell to her business partner and mentor, Porter Wagoner. Steve Ray Vaughan, I think, does the best version of Voodoo Child I've ever heard. And Joe Cocker's, with a little help from my friends, one that's very much associated with that whole Woodstock thing now. But what a beautiful, powerful R&B rendering of a Beatles classic. So you've been watching a video, 10 best cover versions by Classic Album Review. I hope you enjoyed it. Please be sure to leave your comments below. Let me know what your 10 best covers would be. And other than that, just hope you're well, staying safe, but more importantly that you keep listening.